Hello and welcome to the Alexandra Wenman Show. I'm so delighted to introduce you to Skylar Acamesis. Skylar is a master healer, a medical intuitive, a nutritionist, a health coach, and I believe also an author. And she's also a fellow faculty member of the Shift Network, which I'm a part of, so it's absolutely lovely to connect. Skylar, thank you so much for joining me today. It's absolutely marvelous to have you on the show.
So excited to be here with you. It's just the energy is so good. It's going to be fire. I can feel already.
I think we're going to dive into some deeper truths today. But first, can I ask you how it all started for you? How did you find out about your gifts? What was your kind of awakening into this work like?
Oh, I gifts. I think it was trial by fire. I had a serious autoimmune disease that was diagnosed when I was 10. So they diagnosed it with an underactive thyroid slash Hashimoto's when I was 10, and I had like bruises all over my body. And I was a very active, very sporty kid. And I really couldn't get my head around the idea that people just accepted that kind of a life sentence. It was so hard for me to really be like, really, like I'm going to have this for the rest of my life, and they're just going to say that that's okay. They're not even going to try and get it better. And I think that was a massive dark night of the soul at a very young age. Um, and I think it led to me having like my major spiritual awakening, because it led to like, it wasn't conscious, but I could feel my heart cracking open to, if there is, I remember going for a walk literally and saying, if there's anything out there that can help me, find me, right? Like that really deep desire for connection with something bigger, and realizing that what was inside my world was just not going to be enough to like overcome whatever the hell this darkness was. And really realizing, because I think about, it's definitely in the family line, because my dad is a doctor.
Oh, so
And
is mine. Isn't that interesting? I've
healer, right?
actually got goosebumps. Didn't we come in to wake up these bloodlines?
Oh, it's in, I can't, I know it sounds woo woo, or not even woo, but like almost superficially spiritual, but I just can't get my head around how much, just how the size of it, like just how many people are involved inside just one strand. It's just mind, it's so,
So many layers of it kind of intricately interwoven, and it is like when we start to unravel from it or awaken to it, it's like unpicking it layer by layer, isn't it? It's really interesting actually hearing you talk about the fact that it was a thyroid issue, because obviously from the knowledge that we have, thyroid is all about voice, isn't it? And having your voice shut down. And did you have like experience of not being listened to? I mean, most children do, right?
there was multiple things. We were immigrants, so we moved from Brazil to Scotland. So I literally lost my language. I went from speaking one language to having no language for almost 4 months as I was learning to speak English. And my mom didn't speak English either. So I think that was a big part of it already. It was a big shutdown of the voice, right? But there were like, now I can put language to it, but there was like just so much sexism. I watched my mom very much lose her autonomy, because Brazil's a very different type of support. It's actually much more supportive for women,
Mm.
because in the UK, women are kind of expected to be the servants, to be the cook, to be the cleaner, to be the nanny, and to carry it all silently and to make it look easy. Whereas Brazil, India, China, there is a support network for women, and it's expected that you're going to have help when you have children. And it's not taboo to have a cleaner, a cook, or a nanny. It's like normal. You would expect as a part of a household, you
Mm.
know? Whereas in the West, it's like for the elite only. And it was very hard watching my mum make that transition of having her whole family and also extra support to having to do it all by herself with three very young children,
Wow.
to try
You
and give
were
us that.
observing all of this as well at a really young
Yeah.
age. Gosh.
So I think that, and really learning that to keep the peace, I had to almost erase myself. The less I did, the less I asked for, the less I, needed, the less arguments they were, the less she had on her plate. Um, it was going from a very big support network to her being the only thing. And I was very, her and I on a soul level, we're just so connected. I was just so sensitive to how much she was hurting,
So
right?
that
And how,
parentified you quite a lot as a child as well, wouldn't it? You have to grow up really quick.
I, I think like with me, with my mom, like I remember before I even incarnated, I came in with like the direct intention of help, and like support. And I know she's supported me in other lifetimes. Like even now, when I've gone through difficult seasons, like postpartum or whatever, my mom is like, she's just there. She's like the person that would throw herself under the bus in that energy. There's that really deep love there. Um, it's quite beautiful actually in its own crazy way. Our relationship is far from perfect, but I think she thought she couldn't have children. So when we came along, because she had a car accident, so her womb was really badly scarred.
Mm.
So when we came along, especially my brother came along, and then I was a very high risk pregnancy, they told her to get rid of me. Because they were like, she had literally had the coil in and she had the scarring on her uterus. And they were like, there's a very high chance that this is going to put your life in danger and you already have a son.
Wow.
Right. And my mom was just like, if she got in there, she's supposed to be in there. But it's that you could feel that energy of like that mom archetype is something crazy. Um, of her being like, I'm gonna create a container and we're gonna get through this together, and that's just how it's gonna be. But yeah, I think voice wise and being able to like communicate your truth. I think there was a lot of I'm gonna be alone and I'm gonna have to fight in order to from before even that I decided to like really
I
come
did
into.
the survival before you were even born, like, but I'm here. You would have heard all those conversations, you would have,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And I think I chose the right person because she really felt the energy of I'm supposed to be there. Right. And that's a very big thing for somebody that doesn't have a big faith, doesn't have a big spirituality, for her to be like, she's supposed to be there's a big deal. Especially with a lot of people telling you you're, crazy.
Very.
um, but I think that's when you look at like baptism by fire, it's like if you look at the actual incarnation itself was already for me a pretty powerful, you know, thing. And a lot of coming out of like a lot of after my spiritual awakening was like just the layers of that coming off, and just figuring out who I was underneath all of the conditioning, all the programming, all of the parentification, all of the people pleasing, and the good 5 years of just breaking that yoke off, you know,
I'm
and
imagining
really
that
figuring out.
because I know that you're a bit like me, and I know you've trained in theta healing, and as have I. We've got kind of a similar background, I think. Um, how, what came up when you started exploring your other lifetimes that might have been
Oh, they kind
connected?
of hit me like a brick, more like a nightmare. I kid you not. I had like, well, a lot. I was really struggling health wise. I was in my final year of law school, and the thyroid stuff was not messing around. Like I was really exhausted all the time and absolutely miserable. And I went with my then boyfriend to the Lake District to meet his father. We'd been together for about 2 years, and his father was like a Reiki master healer person.
Isn't that awesome? In that generation, that's what a way shower.
So I was very cynical. For goodness sake, I was in law school and I was really struggling to sleep. And I was having a lot of nightmares. Now I know they weren't nightmares. They were like past lives. They were like knocking really hard on my door. But back then I just thought they were like really bad nightmares. So I was studying and trying to avoid the nightmares. And I ended up, because I was so tired, I ended up astral projecting. Right. I kept doing like the wake back to sleep because I kept falling and then waking up like really like in that groggy state. And one of the times I was just walking through the upstairs of the house and I walked into his room and he saw me. He literally opened his eyes and he saw me. And I was like, just like straight back into my body, like, it's not real. Nobody saw me. Nobody saw me. It's not,
And he's like, "You've been busy."
it's not real. And a few minutes later, he comes down the stairs and he goes, you were in my room. And I was like, kind of. I was just like walking around and I was like, not sure I was even, you're not sure you're really having those conversations, but you're just trying to be as honest as you can. At the same time, it's like, I don't know where I was. It was dreaming sort of energy. I was 17. Um, and then he said to me, "You're really struggling." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you want help?" And I said, "I don't think anyone can help me, but if you want to try, we can try." And he said, "I'll give it a try." He said, "Do you want to like try a Reiki session at some point tomorrow?" And I was like, "Sure." I had no idea what Reiki was. I had no idea what I'd agreed to. I'd never had a healing session before. He went back upstairs, and then the next day he took out this big mat, and he used to like channel like Lemurian symbols and like healing symbols. And he got me to lie down on this huge suede mat with like these big like symbols drawn all across them and like language stuff. And he started doing the Reiki, and I started seeing these incredible colors, like I said, that rainbow like pouring in. And I started seeing people, beings moving in and out of the light. And then the emotion just it just felt like coming home, you know. I was days, Alexandra, it was days I couldn't stop crying. And then after it was months of like, it would just hit me out of nowhere. Just that relief of like, I'm not alone, and I'm home, or like I'm safe again. Um, but I think that was like the answer to that prayer that when I was 10, but they just couldn't get in because the energy around me was so dense. And that was like their first crack in the cement. They were like, "We can get in here. We're going to get in here."
So you went you went on a quite the healing journey, didn't you? After that, and you managed to reverse all your symptoms, and so
Within the year, the autoimmune disease was gone, and then everything that came after, because I had a few things afterwards. Like I had to overcome my own infertility stuff, um, and various miscarriages. I was hit by a car crossing the street, so I had to do like heal my own back as well. Um, um, so there was various things in my own health I had to overcome, but I was already helping people sort out their stuff at the same time. So it was kind of like practice along the
like
road.
part of the training, isn't it, Skylar? I love how the universe leads us into the things, and we could look at those things as, oh, this is awful, or we could look at those things as, what a beautiful opportunity to, expand my gifts and figure out who I am.
I think when you're in it, you kind of think you've been buried and you've actually been planted. You're just. But I think it's what I said. It's that courage to be able to believe that there is something really, really necessary happening for you, because like the transformation between a very cynical, depressed, and angry soul to somebody who feels at one with life, and who um is able to like hold like the end of suffering for other people. That's a big thing to ask of a soul, right? To go from somebody who's cynical to somebody who works with miracles, that's a big thing. And if you told me that when I was like 18, 19, I would have told you were absolutely friggin' crazy. I didn't even believe in people, never mind in God.
I
So
love it.
it's very, but I like the course line from the Course in Miracles, because I think it's beyond faith. It's like, belief is not required. What's required is showing up. And I think was a big thing for me, because a lot of times I didn't believe it would work. I didn't believe I'd ever get better. I didn't believe there was a bigger purpose. And, there was all along. But absolutely, I think there's a huge meaning to everything that happens to us.
Amazing. So how do you work with people currently? Do you work one on one? Do you what you obviously you teach, you have a program that you run, don't you?
I'm a hybrid, so I do one-to-ones. That's my Monday and Tuesdays, and then on Wednesdays is when I teach my courses. So I do the medical intuitive mastermind, and that's a 6 month or a year program where I'm training the medical intuitives to really be really laser on with that. Medicine is just such a huge field, getting them with a proper intuitive library, getting them to really practice resolving health issues and go deep with everything that come up it's a full-time job, let's put it that way. um and then we run like little mini minds on various topics that are percolating in our groups. So we've done like Akashic Records this year. We've done spiritual warfare this year as well. But that just gets put in on the Wednesdays. And but the like for me, like I said, I was a theta healer for a long time and I still absolutely love theta. But it was COVID because theta wasn't ready to go online. So there was this gap for me, especially when I was like working for another a theta healing company in the UK, and I was the one who was like, there was a teacher who was dedicated to relationships, a teacher who was dedicated to money, and I was the one who was dedicated to health. And you can imagine with COVID hitting, suddenly the my practice, like there were lists
Mm.
and people were in serious trouble. And a lot of other healers and teachers weren't deeply trained in medical intuition or health issues. It was superficial at best and absent completely at worst. And suddenly the hospitals closed their doors.
Mm.
Not to mention there was a virus around, and I was pregnant with Archie.
Oh gosh, Skylar. Here you go, heap it on.
And that's when I was like, I don't have 6 months to 9 months to wait to be able to teach intuitive anatomy, or I have to do something now. I have to help people now. There's too many people that are going to disappear into the cracks in 6 months or 9 months.
Mm.
Um, and that's when I decided to create something of my own. And we're like back to like divine intervention, because I was so comfortable and happy in Theta Land that I would probably have stayed there forever. It's just such a beautiful modality. It's so easy. It comes so naturally, and the community is just so gorgeous. I would very happily have kept swimming in that pool of consciousness forever without peeking out or taking any risks, if that hadn't happened. But there was a real divine timing moment for me, and it was when I went to get an ultrasound for Archie. I think it was like 2 or 3 days after they implemented the lockdown in London, and there was nobody else on the underground except like this tiny little squeaky mouse. And when I got to the hospital, the nurse at the door said to me, have you had any symptoms? Are you ill? And I said to her, no, I don't have any symptoms. I'm not ill. And she said, good, because if you have any symptoms, you can't come in. And I remember the fire. And I remember looking at her and saying, this is a hospital.
Mm.
That like, this is a hospital. Like, this is where sick people come. Like, I almost said to her, you took an oath, right? This what, it wasn't a joke. It was for real. And there was like this moment of alchemy where I was like, not on my watch. I don't care if they come for me. I don't care if they knock down the doors. And I definitely was with the right person when it comes to Todd in that sense, because I think a lot of flip out. I remember saying to him, I'm going to teach medical intuition. He was sitting next to me and he was like, in the middle of a lockdown. And I was like, yes. And he was like, around health. And I was like, yes. And he was like, okay.
Is that all right then?
The wheels turning of like, we're really going to do this. And I was sitting there going, I can't, like, the mirror was so real that I was giving into that part of me that was like self-preservation over people who were really suffering and really dying, and really like, I was like, I want to protect my baby. I want to protect myself. What if I get sick and I lose, yeah, we're just gone because we catch this thing. And it just flipped in my head in that moment. I was like, no, we either believe that there is an all loving, all consuming power that's going to protect people and lift them and that can heal this, whatever the hell this is, or we go into the other side, but there isn't an in-between moment. Um, and that's when I kind of transitioned over more into my own thing. And then because of postpartum and the insane transition that motherhood um, I'm still only really working 3 days, as opposed to like theta is full on. Theta for me was like every weekend, and a lot of sessions and things like that. Whereas at least this has kept me in a container where I can give the level of nurturing required and still be able to,
Mm.
lead in my divine life purpose in a way. The shift is my first real venturing out after that. But that's how I got into my own thing in that way.
That's fantastic. It's really interesting talking about the whole COVID thing. I remember at the time feeling like, we always look at it, don't we? We look at the consciousness of the illness. And I remember going, this is a crowning. This is a birth. This is the rebirth of humanity, or the birth into the new earth. And the rapidity of how quickly things are moving currently is off the charts, off the scale. And I want to talk to you about your perspective on what is actually happening within and around medicine at the moment, because I'm seeing there's really great stuff coming in, but it's about letting people know about it, I suppose, and dispelling some of the fear, because there's also a lot of dark stuff surfacing, where really blinkers are off now. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, there's still a lot of people in incredible cognitive dissonance. And that is, I think it's difficult, isn't it? I know I've had to sit back, even from members of my own family, and just go, you just do what you need to do and
Yeah.
not try and force or push, because there's such a backlash. But in terms of the shifts and the changes that you're seeing, what's your perspective on it, Skylar?
Such a huge question.
No, sorry, it's everything, isn't it? It's
It's such a huge question, but let's start with the core principle, which I think you'll really resonate with. Is one of the master and original lessons in healing is free will.
mm,
And when you're in like that rescuer archetype or the healer archetype, it's like that first test by fire. They're testing, like, are you going to respect this person? Are you going to see them as like a sovereign being? Or are you going to go into victim consciousness? Because illness is a real
mm,
lock in, and that archetype does not mess around, right? It's a real the number. I was saying that yesterday inside the course, where like I was saying to them, you don't understand the power of like that consciousness to control a family, to like control entire systems, that like within moments of an illness being diagnosed, the whole family is running around it. Like
mm,
it's got everybody under its control. That's the level of whole. When you shift into that free, it's a lot of panic. It's a lot of terror, to be honest.
mm,
Um, so it's that first test of like prodding, going, what level of consciousness are you coming at me at? And especially with family members, I've had it very much with both of my boys and with my parents, who are really not spiritual in the way that I am at all. They're, very, as far as they were concerned, they're not spiritual, they're not religious, they don't believe in this stuff in that way at all. Um, so it's been a very big, like I said, very, very big exercise in consciousness, navigating the way they deal with health issues and the way that they apply solve problems
mm.
versus the way I solve problems, right? But that free will thing is I literally gonna say that free will thing is a bitch. Like it's like round one, and it can really um it can really stop a healing in its tracks if the other person doesn't want to be involved in the process of their own. That's it, that's game over, and that's a big thing in medicine, because they disrespect clients' free will all the time. They're constantly trying to force treatments on people and force and terrorize people into getting treatments all the time. So there's a constant attack on free will.
I've definitely noticed in recent years a huge push for more and more surgeries rather than even just baseline treatments. It's like, well, let's just go in and open you up. And it's so obvious to me that that's because they make more money, and it's just push, push, push this agenda when people could have gone in, changed
Oh,
their
it's,
diet, changed their mindset, tried different therapies.
oh, it's terrifying. And I actually think it's criminal. I'm really going to say it, and I'm going to say it. I think it's criminal. You take an oath as a healer, forget doctor and nurse. You take an oath as a healer that you will do no harm.
Mm,
And from a medical perspective, to be prescribing surgery to a condition that you haven't even tried to address in a less severe way to children, to vulnerable people, to me is an act of violence. It's especially to keep somebody in ignorance and not fully inform them of the consequences of what that involves. Because I find that is one of the other things around free will, is that this partial information, these half truths, these lack of a true education, right? Masquerading as some sort of intellectual superiority.
mm,
Um, I know better, therefore I should make those decisions. And you can feel it as a healer trying to sneak in as well. I know better, they should be doing this, they should be doing that. And I really feel it when it comes to like Archangel Raphael, when it comes to God, like the hand on my shoulder so many times going, um, like really going, like I can heal this without having to do anything you think I have to do,
mm,
right? Like God isn't attached to a particular modality. He's not attached to a particular protocol. There is no requirement. It's a human idea that we have to go through these things, right? It helps because it gives us a sense of control, and it allows us to feel safe, and we're doing something. But that divine consciousness is just in that vibration of unconditional health. It's not, there is nothing required. And that's so hard to get your human brain wrapped around. It's just not a human concept,
It's often
you
a
know?
thing. I think, you know, the biggest part of healing is allowing people to be seen and held and heard. And I remember having a conversation with my dad many years ago. And it was this beautiful conversation when I'd started, training in theatre and I was learning all of this stuff. And he was like, come and tell me this mumbo jumbo that you're learning. What is this mumbo jumbo? And we had a chat about it. And I said, Dad, when you treat your patients, do you care for them? And he said, yeah. He said, something that he'd seen the younger doctors were losing was their bedside manner. And he was like, it's 90% of the healing. If you do not care, they do not heal. And he'd seen that through the core of his whole career. And my
Wow.
dad's incredibly intuitive. Like he saves lives just going in, looking at a person without even checking them over and goes, oh, this person's got such and such. But it was only recently that he realized he was actually using some sort of
Intuition, yeah.
scientific ability. Um, but I love that. I think presence and hearing people and letting them, sit in their own free will and letting them kind of figure it out is such a hugely important part of it, isn't it?
They don't feel safe with you, they're not going to come anyway. The number of people that have been dragged in to see me because their families are terrified they're going to die, and they come in and I'm like, you don't want to be here, do you? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, do you want like a tea or a coffee? You can just sit in the car, I won't tell.
Mm.
Right. And just because I gave them permission to not have to do anything, not even live to get my love or my approval or whatever, it was enough for like the next time they came, or for there to be an email afterwards going, I'm sorry, I was like really rude. Can you tell me at least, what you do? Or the, just because it's like that pressure is real. Having been sick, I know that that pressure is real. I remember my mom begging me to take my medications when I came off them because she thought I wasn't going to survive without them, you know? Um, and like the people that are around you, they really care, and they have their own ideas about what you need to serve. They're in a panic because they think they're going to lose you if you're in that difficult situation, right? But absolutely, I think there, when it comes to doctors, and it's interesting because I've had a lot of doctors train with me, which makes sense, right? I've had a lot of doctors and nurses train with me. In the beginning, it used to really scare
That's
me. I was just,
mind blowing and amazing. Well done. Like, seriously, I think they should all have to train with you, not to load more on top of you, though, Skylar. But that's incredible.
you don't get into medicine or nursing unless you want to help people,
Mm,
right? And one of the ways they get them is through exhausting them.
mm,
They break them. And it's no different than being a mom. If they don't help you, you're really like in trouble. Sleep deprivation is real. You do back to back on calls and you have 5 minutes per patient. There's a point where, you can't have compassion or empathy anymore without not being able to stay in that system anymore, which I find interesting in and of itself, right? But I think they're very much hammering also like not GPs and doctors used to have time to build relationships with their communities, and now they keep moving them,
yeah. You
moving
can't
them,
even get an
moving them, moving
appointment
them,
now,
moving them.
can you? You can't phone up and book an appointment in advance.
With
You
a
just have
specific
to.
doctor. So the doctor doesn't know you can, but this is what I mean. Doctors and healers are very difficult to control. We're very difficult to manipulate. I think that's why they had to resort to like exhaustion tactics, because we're fiercely protective. We do care about our patients and our clients. You can't, and this is also the other aspect of, they knew that doctors can't see people not getting better all the time and not start to stand up or rise or create. So they made sure those people never saw the same people more than once, right? Because they want to get away from the protective instincts,
Mm,
because doctors are powerful. They're financially powerful, they're educated, they care about, so they can cause real problems for the pharmaceutical companies, really big, and they already did in the 80s. So they had to find a way of making sure that they would, not have that happen again. It's just very insidious and happened very quietly. And I think especially the new doctors coming in, they didn't realize what they were getting in for,
mm,
and the level of debt and things they were getting into as well. So they were kind of like locked in there.
mm,
I think what's most heartbreaking is when they aren't allowed to help people or heal people, they lose trust in themselves. They start to really, um, see themselves as corrupted in some way, and they forget that, like, that it's incredible the power of it, isn't it? It's just so incredible the power of it that you don't need a system to heal someone.
The system is so insidious. And I remember as a child observing this. I remember being about 8 years old, and my dad's friend coming around, and we'd go out on these karaoke nights, and he'd come round sort of once every 6 months. But it was obviously the drug rep was coming around and schmoozing my dad, and like, oh, here, John, try this, try that. Here's this antibiotic and that drug, and da 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 da. And when I look back on it now, it's alarming because he was Uncle Jerry. But he was doing his job, and it's like, get into the family life, get in, be the buddy, make sure that this doctor is using all these products, and you're just like, no, was he actually my dad's friend? That kind of feeling. It's just like, it's so set up. Salesman, the proper salesman tactics, isn't it? But get in, get the trust happening, you know.
It's like where people, not everything that is sweet and kind and is actually good for you, right? And I think that's one of the hardest things about being spiritually awake is that I say that it's so hard. Like, it's easy when you and I are talking like this, but when you're sitting across from somebody that's got a terminal illness, or they're in it with a chronic illness, and they're like, there's no one here. I've lost all my friends. My family doesn't call. Nobody cares about what happens to me. And you're just like taking a really, really deep breath, because the courage it takes to be present with that reality and with the way that the system, and exactly what you described as the lack of empathy, the lack of like the fake kindness. We really care about you, and then there's no one there. They really trusted those people with their lives, and then when they needed it, there was no net.
Mm.
And then you're asking them to freaking trust you again. You're like, holy, like, the fact that they even can or they want to trust God is a friggin' miracle in and of itself.
Mm.
But absolutely, the sales tactics, the half truths, the telling you there's no side effects to things that have severe side effects, the sending people home. I had an old lady in the course yesterday who was in A&E the night before, and they literally sent her home without anything, without a diagnosis, without anything, just kept her in until her symptoms had started to dissolve, and then put her on a bunch of pain meds and sent her home. And I was like, what was the diagnosis? There was none. No blood tests were run or whatever. And you're saying, this is a vulnerable person. You have a duty of care. And it's across the board. The number of women with endometriosis, they just go in and get told to get pregnant, or get told like to just have everything yanked out. They never have a diet for years. And when you're in it, because you're seeing clients consistently, it stops being one person and it starts being most of the people you talk to.
They gave me this was my dark night of the soul. They gave me a diagnosis of indiagnosable infertility.
Oh, honey, I'm so sorry.
And no, it's fine. I can talk about it now. Big journey, very supernatural journey actually. And I know what I know exactly what was going on. But it's a conversation for another day. I'm not sure I'm entirely ready to talk about it. It'll probably be a novel one day, but you can't make up some of this stuff. But yeah, they were all scratching their heads. But a bit like you, I guess, the journey to heal myself and to go down through that process is what has made me an even better healer. And the level, like, once you've been cracked open and broken like that, the level of empathy that comes out, the level of compassion, but I think also the level of resilience and courage and stamina that you have. There's very little that even touches the sides now. I'm like, stress less, just you're just like, whatever, it'll be what it is. It's interesting, but they really were. I saw a side to the medical profession because obviously, like you, growing up in it, I saw this was pre-pandemic as well for years, and I knew that. I mean, all the channels, we were all told a big wave of change was coming in. We knew something really big was about to happen. But I watched exactly what you were talking about, the empathy leave that system. And I was dealing with doctors that looked at me with dead eyes. They were like robots. There was definitely other energies working through them.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't matter what I said or my perspective or my intuition, women's intuition, completely out the window. They were like, nope, no, no, it's not this, it's that. Pushed in to think they were trying to push me into IVF, they were trying to push me into all these things. And the tests that should have been done weren't done that I knew, and the amount of it, the amount of gaslighting and stonewalling and Darvo flipping, it was insidious and
It's terrifying.
absolutely frightening, absolutely frightening, and it really leaves a person feeling crushed. So I mean, thank God for the work that you're doing, because so many people, we need alternatives, and there's so many alternatives out there. But I think now that that kind of darkness is really revealing itself within that system, we need to start bridging the worlds and bringing in the work that we do into that world. But whether or not that system will allow that transformation, I'm not sure. But
I think there's two elements of it. Part of my healing was realizing that the system is not in control.
hmm,
Like, and that was a big thing for me, was because we're back to what I thought was, you know, I really, and a deep part of me always wants to fix the system. That's part of why I became a lawyer, right? I'm going to get in there and I'm going to fix the system. And then, like, part of like realize it's the same thing with like with a healthy body. A healthy body has an immune system that is functioning everywhere throughout the whole thing. It's not like you have to go to a specific area of the body to find the immune system. It is present everywhere, right? And I think what happened with these centralized systems is that the protection that should be present everywhere, the healing that should be present everywhere. Like that's part of the vision with this, is to make hospitals and schools that are available to teach people how to take sovereignty over their health all over the world unconditionally, period. It's to give that sovereignty over their health back to people. End of story, right? And that is what, like, these centralized tiny systems, they broke that. We used to, somebody got sick, you used to know what to do. You weren't in a panic because you knew you had to get the fever down from their head. You knew that there were different systems that you knew the different plants in your garden that were going to help.
yeah,
And that knowledge being taken, and being, you basically being told only, is no different than like the religious stuff, being told only these people can talk to God, only these people can heal,
yeah,
right? It really took that protection that was everywhere and made it only in specific tiny places for people that could afford it, right? So my idea of like fixing the system, and creator being like, there's a reason all the awakenings are happening, and there's a reason that people are like in the wounded healer archetype, and it's because the system is supposed to be omnipresent. You guys are supposed to be everywhere. You're supposed to be in every family, in every street, in every church, in every, you're supposed to be everywhere, because that's how I am,
yeah,
right? It's not supposed to be you have to go somewhere far away to get help and talk to a specific expert. You're supposed to be able to quiet your intellect, tune in and figure out what is going on, that there's an imbalance in your body, in your community, in your
yeah,
environment, right? And that was a big shift, because the whole of the system is powered by us putting money into it. So the more it starts to dissolve, particularly when we're not at war with it or at battle that are trying to take it down, it's already starting to fall apart.
yeah,
And the systems that are taking over, it's what you said, there's some crazy things that are bonkers, but people aren't dumb. And the more they're given alternatives and in affordable ways that mean that they can introduce them, that don't involve them having to be tortured or slowly killed or harmed in a particular way. Like the number of people that aren't going to doctor for blood tests anymore, they're just getting it through the post.
I know. There's all these new things, got functional medicine as well coming up in the world. And there's a huge resurgence of homeopathy. I mean, I remember back in the day there were homeopathic hospitals. It was part of everything. I remember at the beginning of the year I was running an event in Switzerland, and I loved because most of the pharmacies
Yeah.
are pharmacy and homeopathy side by side. And to see that was really refreshing, that you could go in and, choose your medicine. So I
Yep.
think, yeah, I think there's two sides to every coin, isn't there? I think the system had to, in a weird way, lock us out or not be helpful. I know for me, I had to be locked out of the system because I grew up in that medical family, and there was still a part of me needing a diagnosis, giving my power away, needing someone external to myself to help me. And then eventually I was like, oh God, I need to actually remember who I am and the tools that I have and go back within. And then eventually, I got to this place of, if that door didn't open, then it was at my door and I'm here for something else. And just total acceptance, just total.
Don't know, are you comfortable with me speaking about my experience with that, or would it trigger you too much?
No, it's fine, honey. Yeah, no, I mean, this is the thing. I've got beautiful nieces and nephews. I've got friends that have got children. I'm a mother to many, I think. It's.
I can only tell you like what my experience. Everyone's journey is so different.
Mm,
There is to but for me, um it was multi-layered, as you know. With my fertility, there was so much religious trauma, and I was so much in my spirituality. I had so many lifetimes of having to give up my family and my desire to procreate in order to be allowed to have a relationship with God, that was deep in my bones. And then the other layer of it was, 1 in 3 children used to die. And 80% of women used to die in childbirth. I had at least 6 lifetimes where I had to work through. And my first one was with my younger sister. I died giving birth to my younger sister. And in that lifetime, I was married to my brother.
mm,
And I literally watched from him raising her from the other side, and the hatred and the anger I felt was huge.
mm,
And it was interesting because in this lifetime, my mum would say to me, "You're not her mother."
yeah. Yeah.
And I always treated her like, and I was like, oh, this was like years after, like what? So that was the first one. There were quite a few. And then I was asked to go and teach in Dubai. And so many of the women, because in Dubai, the men can force women to have abortions,
Mm,
and they can force women to have fertility treatments, and because women are still property and all those arranged marriages. And I was asked to go to Dubai, and I literally booked out Dubai, and behind the scenes, it started to become almost because the word gets around.
mm,
So I was helping them to resolve other issues, but then when they realized I could help with fertility issues, and there was so much suffering, particularly around loss of children or gender of children, or um, so much stuff. Literally, I started doing. It was supposed to be like from 9 until like 5. I opened up, so it was like 7 until 9 because there were so many people, and I just it got emotional, but I knew that if I couldn't help, that there wasn't somebody else that was gonna be able to come in and do that. And there was so much unforgiveness that I'd had from myself in the lifetimes where I'd been forced, or I hadn't wanted to have children with that partner because it was like an arranged marriage and it was basically legalized rape, and it made me hate the pregnancy or hate. I had so much unforgiveness that I was so buried that I couldn't even, I was dissociated from it. So I was completely, but doing those healings for them and being able to completely see their innocence
mm,
and love them and really get like um really get how worthy they were of having what they really desired, or being in the archetype despite having had other experiences. I think that was the final shift for me where it kind of unlocked,
mm,
and I was able to like let my body start to, like, my endocrine system locked into place, my estrogen started doing its thing, my progesterone started doing its thing. But there was so much there. And the final piece for me, because for me, when I do medical intuition, estrogen is like the mother archetype energy, and progesterone is the daughter type energy or the child type energy. And that piece only, like the estrogen only started, and progesterone's very important because lack of it makes the baby's heart not beat.
that's what
Right.
happened
Or makes
to
it,
me.
yeah.
I was very progesterone deficient. Mm,
So for me, the progesterone, I only managed to heal that when I was willing to face the lifetimes and the experiences in this life, in my childhood, where the men had hurt my children.
mm,
So they'd made me have children to hurt children. And I'd like made a vow that I would never bring a child into this world for somebody else to hurt it. So it was like locked in. The progesterone just couldn't do its thing. Because I was like, they're gonna get hurt and it's gonna be my fault because they came through me.
mm,
That was my last one. Um, but it was like I said, multi-layered. It was pretty. There were aspects of it I was completely unconscious to and dissociated from, and um, even then, it was completely different before the kids came. After they came, like there were aspects of that really I didn't see, particularly like the misogyny and the sexism and the using children to trap women.
Mm.
that were like, they absolutely blindsided me.
Mm.
And like you said, they used to cut them. My son was born like, in the middle of COVID, like the middle. And that means they made Todd leave after an hour after he was born. Um, they wanted to do vaccines and all sorts of things as well. And they wanted to like literally like do one of those swabs up your nose just so that I could go in to have their support during the process. And Todd and I just walked out. I was like, no, I'm not having somebody do medical procedures on me that I don't want. I don't need when I'm not sick.
Mm.
Right before I'm about to um, go to that space. After my son was born and Todd had to go home, that's like I said, that first mother architect, like that protection came in because they kept wanting to take the baby away. They kept moving like, oh, we're just going to take him away to do tests. We're just going to take him away to weigh. And we're just going to take. And I was like, you will not touch the child. You will not go anywhere near the child. I was like, you come anywhere near that baby, and I'm gonna end up in jail, and you're gonna have to deal with my husband.
Mm.
And they were like calling me, they're like the mother,
The mother. Yeah.
mother. And they kept sending different doctors in to try and negotiate, to wear me down or tire me. And this was after I was already exhausted. I was already drained. I was trying to figure out, how to latch and how to do all that stuff. And they kept saying, oh, it will just be easier. Why don't you just sit here and have a coffee, and we'll take him away, and we'll do it when you don't. You'll just make him upset if you come with us. And I was like, no, you just don't want me watching what you're doing.
Mm.
I was like, you don't want an adult in the room. It's like, he's a baby. Wherever
Traumatized
he goes, I
baby.
go. I was like, whatever you need to do, like weighing him, etc., I will come. Absolutely fine. Not a problem, but you will not take him into a separate room or do anything. You will not remove the child from my presence. And that was when I first realized, because I was the person who, though I'm pretty confident when I'm teaching, I'm pretty shy in real life.
Mm.
I don't like standing up to, but it was that moment where, like I said, the chains like came off, and I was like, I don't care what you think of me. I don't care how difficult you think I am. Like the people pleaser was gone. The prolactin had kicked in. And I was like, no one touches the baby. No one does anything to the baby. It doesn't run through me first. Right. And if they do, they will be tackled to the
You would
it
have had
was
superhuman strength as well, wouldn't you?
I
Adrenaline.
did not expect it to be that strong. I did not. And literally they were like, you should stay for like a week, or stay for like 3 days. And I was like, I'm going home tomorrow. And they were like, oh, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. I was like, bring me the forms, we're going home tomorrow. And they were like, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. And I was like, with all due respect, can you stop trying to scare me
Mm.
and scaring yourself, and just give me the decision has been made. And then they kept going. I was like, the decision has been made, right? But it was that sovereignty that I was like, I don't know, like, holy mother, I don't know where this is coming from.
From probably Holy Mother.
It was like,
Working for you.
right. It's interesting, right? Because you think you know it, but the law of experience, like actually embodying it, was a whole different thing. But it made me, like I said, about the gaslighting and trying to make me feel like I wasn't qualified, trying to make me feel like I didn't know, trying to make me feel like my immune system wasn't strong enough, like my breast milk wouldn't be good enough.
Wow.
Like there was so much stuff that was like coming in, that I was like, if I didn't have that connection, they would have taken me down, and they would have had me within eating out of the palm of their hands within 2 seconds. They would have hooked in there with your hurting your baby, and I would have done whatever they asked me just so that I didn't hurt the child.
And women do, don't they? They feel they completely disempower the mother, and it's in the wild. The mothers are like that, what bear wouldn't go rip someone's head off for taking her cub?
Oh,
It's
oh my God.
who
Yeah.
has that connection, that mothering instinct. It's
It's the like this is it's interesting, right? Because I'd experienced estrogen and the mother hormone. I hadn't experienced the oxytocin. I hadn't experienced the prolactin. And there was these other really powerful forces coming in that were like showing me like it's a trifecta. Protecting a kid is not just about being
mm,
sweet and nurturing, which is like the estrogen aspect. There's real
mm,
um but it was big because it showed me what women are afraid of. I used to think, what are they afraid of after the kid comes? Like, I don't understand. And then when I was there in it, I was like, I understand exactly what they're afraid of. And it's not just a past life thing. It is an absolute real threat right here,
mm,
right
mm.
now. And it's invisible. If you're not in it, you don't see it. If you're not in it, you don't understand it. And it's, it's invisible. If you're not in it, you don't see it. And it's, it's invisible. If you're not in it, you don't understand it. And it's, it's invisible. If you're not in it, you don't see it. And it's,
If you can't see it, and it goes into childhood too, doesn't it? The indoctrination starts from the minute, you've got television, you've got schooling, you've got religion, you've got all the, and to come out of that matrix. But how do you not expose your young children now to all of that? Like, how are you doing?
I think I had to make, oh, there's so many things I had to make peace with, but the first one was my son, my first son is an absolute warrior. And like the first experience I had of him being powerful, like not seeing him like a helpless baby, like seeing him as a like who he really was on the way to that ultrasound because I was scared.
Mm.
And I was scared getting on that train by myself. I was scared going by myself. And literally, when I stepped onto the tube and I was brave enough, I literally admitted to myself, I'm scared. And I felt this like Star Wars type vroom energy. And suddenly I was inside like this bubble. And I was sitting there going, I'm not alone. Like, I'm really not alone. And it was my first experience of literally tuning in because I could feel his heart beating and my heart beating at the same time and like making a figure of eight.
Wow.
And I could really feel him going like, I was really scared because of like the trapping thing. I was like, I'm scared I was gonna lose who I was. And I could really feel him saying, I chose you because of who you are.
Mm.
Right? Like there's no way I'm gonna let you lose any of who you are. We're gonna become more together. Like he like his ability to just hold that space and that expansion. I was sitting there going, okay, I don't know who you are as a human, but I know who you are. Right. I know who you are. Um, and he's still fearless to this day. He's just such a fearless soul. And he's always telling mommy, I can do it. He's got this relentless self-belief. He's like, I can do it. I can just do it. Um, and he like when I really started seeing him start to like move towards independence and like the real world, and especially through like things like TV or cartoons or different things, and he started asking me questions. I really had to let go of being able to control the human experience in that way for him. And I had to adapt to there being like child appropriate versions,
Mm.
with like dreams and with the illusions and with consciousness. But with him, I taught him like basically about the rays of creation, about the different colors. I taught him about like always being able to ask, that divine light or God for help or his angels for help. There were a couple of times he would be driving in the car to my mom's and it would be snowing. And I'd be driving here for work. She takes care of them while I work. And he would be like, it's really dark, mommy, and I'm scared. And he was like, will the angels protect us? And I was like, they already are, honey, before we even left the car park, you
Wow.
know? And he'd be like asking questions and where do they come from? How can I, talk to them? Will they always help me? Do they help everybody? And he's just comes out with these one-liners every once in a while that make me go, what did you just say? um, but he's very he really made me, it's the same thing like with the sick, with people who are ill, like he really made me respect his own sovereignty and his own free will. And he's such a good manifester. It's shocking to me. I mean, it shouldn't be because it's Todd, right? Todd is his father. But like when I'll give you an example. The kid loves jellyfish. So he's just taking the stabilizers off his bike. We're on this long bike ride so he can practice. And we are cycling by the beach, but we're quite far from the beach. Like, I don't know, there's like these, those chairs that people sit to look at the beach, but then there's like this big ocean front, and then there's like the sand that goes down to the beach. Somehow, during the storm, a jellyfish got flown from the ocean to the path where his bike is on. And there's this dead jellyfish right in front of his bike. And he's like, Mummy,
He's
there's a
obviously, he's
jellyfish.
obviously a Lemurian or something. Like he's lived under the ocean and
I'm like, I have walked this path 1,000 times since I was a child because I grew up where he's growing up, and I'm not once have I ever walked into a jellyfish anywhere near.
manifested the jellyfish.
But he's like that with anything. He literally like he wants a motorbike, and then somebody will offer him a ride on their motorbike. He's just very good at accepting that things are. And I because of our consciousness, he's like, when he creates things, I'm like, that's a really good manifestation, right? And if I can't afford something, or if I can't do that right, and then I'm like, why don't you focus on it, and then we'll see where it's going to come. You're just going to keep an eye and we'll see how the universe delivers it. Right. And it always comes one way or the other. Um, but it's quite interesting because he doesn't believe that he can't have anything, which
That's
is very different than what I grew up with. Right.
mm,
But like I had to let go of being able to control his human experience. I had to trust, like you said, that even the obstacles that God places in his way are there for a reason or for a purpose.
mm, mm,
Um, and I had to like find that line between protecting him. It's like this, you have to find that line between, holding their heart and chaining them. Right. He's such a he's so embodies the virtue of freedom
mm,
that for me to, try and cage him in any way would be sort of a crime.
mm,
And it's that balance of like really teaching him that he's capable at the same time as, keeping him safe. Not an easy line. But I think with kids, as I said, you're a portal, you're not prison. And you don't like, we know a part of the mission that God has for them, but not all of it.
mm. It's true.
Like God has their own relationship with them that's much bigger than our relationship with them. And men in particular, oh my God, when I had boys, there's a whole other archetype that opens up because I think subconsciously I was prepared for a girl. And then when the boys came and I was like, I'm gonna have to heal all the war trauma. I'm gonna have to heal all the emotional castration and the spiritual dissociation and the misogyny and um the psychopaths and the narcissism and the I was like, this is going to be a whole different side of stuff because I just finished kind of finishing the female stuff. And then I was like, how the hell do you raise conscious spiritual men? And there's a whole buckload of really deep stuff that they need to sort out. And there's a profound assault on conscious manhood, which is insane.
Oh, it's unbelievable, isn't it? It is.
And it starts so young. It just starts so young. Like I don't want to be having conversations with my 4-year-old about guns
Mm.
and about murder and about violence. And I have to because it's everywhere. It's all the time. And it's just portrayed as innocence and games. And it's what you said, the lack of emotional empathy is portrayed as strength.
Yeah, it is. That just cut yourself off from the neck and go up into your logic, and then that's all they're allowed. It's like this tiny little compartment. It's
Trying to explain to a 4-year-old the difference between courage versus force
mm,
is an entirely, it can be done, but you're sitting there going, there's your conversations, but it's kind of like sexualization with girls. You're being forced to have conversations with them that you should not be having to have because they're forcing ideas let me put it this way. I took them to a soft play last week. The whole idea was for us to get away from the house, right? And have some time and really go wild and do the wild thing. They'd installed a giant video game with guns inside a children's soft.
okay.
And the biggest meltdown was him saying, I want to do what all the other boys are doing and I want to play with the big toy guns. And I'm sitting there going, this is just not something we can do. Right? We don't have this stuff in our house. It's not something that we can do. And this isn't a place that's for like 1-year-olds to 7-year-olds. It's not like it's for teenagers.
Really?
It's not like an arcade. This is like proper young baby soft play scenario. And I was like, it's too early,
Mm,
right? It's just too early. They can't defend themselves.
that
And they
really
want the
blows me away.
significance. They want the power. They want the control. They have that deep desire to protect, right? And they're basically having something shoved in their hands that makes them feel like they can achieve all of those needs without having mastered any of the emotional skills to be able to handle that power. And you're sitting there going, we're going to like, I had to like really revert, like over 2 years. I had to start when he was 2 with the books around emotional regulation and labeling. But now it's even more like obvious what they're going to do and how, like, you walk into the girls section of the store and it's all, you know, emotional regulation toys and sensory and soft and intellectual stimulation and how do we save the world and how we do. You walk into the boys section, it's all monsters and trucks and destructive things and guns and blasters and it's all aggression.
Mm,
And you're like, don't tell me they don't know because they do. You walk into the clothing section and their colors are all bright and beautiful. Walk into the I had to start buying things from other countries so boys could wear color.
Wow, it's unbelievable, isn't it? It's but also in that, all the softness around the feminine, that also ignores and stamps
Their
out
power.
that it is feminine, doesn't it? It really is like the containment of it and the absolute polarization of it is
Yeah,
incredible.
exactly what you said, the gaslighting of it does not exist. And there's something, it's masculine. And you hear it a lot, even in spiritual circles. They're like, oh, you're in your masculine energy. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
It's
no.
like there's a big difference between a woman in her power and a woman in her masculine. But for starters, we all have both, right? But it's so interesting that there it's so strong, right? That they're even making money wrong if it's not in a particular soft and girly
It's like
and
women are not allowed to be angry and men are not allowed to cry and like it's just
crying is the tip of the iceberg. Like they want to, women have had a kind of an awakening because they're conscious of sexism. They're beginning to understand misogyny. They can see the traps, not necessarily when they're in their 20s or teens, but they start to see it when they come out of their 30s and 40s. It's very difficult to be unseen. And particularly, like you said, because of the waves of consciousness coming through the different social media platforms, because of AI, it's becoming harder and harder and harder not to be able to deconstruct the ways that they're trapped in toxic relationships, the way that they're trapped by the market, the way that they're trapped finally. They're really being able to see it, even if they can't necessarily energetically begin to change it yet.
hmm,
Men aren't even aware they're on a leash, most of them.
no, they're not they
You
think
know,
they've got power and
they
that's been
think
the
they've
problem.
got power when really all they have is control and fear.
Mm.
And it's terrifying, you know. I
Because
remember
it
having that
makes them not
conversation
want
with
to
Todd.
change it too, doesn't it? It makes them think, oh, well, it's not broken, so why do we even want to change it? Why would we even try? It's not even an option. I mean, I remember going through this whole thing with my husband in recent years of I went through my own extra awakening to a massive challenge. And at the end of it, I again felt broken. And then I just turned around and went to him, you've got to have some therapy. Like it's your choice. But I was like, I cannot stay in this marriage if you don't,
Yeah.
because I can't carry the whole emotional load of everything that we've been through. And thankfully, he jumped on board, and he's doing it his way, and that's fine. And his way is, but he's a different person now. He's starting to really grow and open up, and like, but there was a need for a bit of a chiseling through some walls, like a jackhammering through some walls. It was very, very tough, especially doing the work that I do, to be with somebody who was just so in the logic, but it's beautifully, poetically heaven on earth, isn't it? Libra and Capricorn, air and earth. I mean, you can't make it up.
um,
Total opposites attract, but we do make it work. And I think that we laugh a lot. You have to laugh or you'll go absolutely nuts. But yeah, we're on a much more beautifully balanced, even keel. And I think the whole pandemic was a huge wake up call for him. And that was a real blessing. But I think that's also the same of a lot of people in the collective now. It's like people that were really sold on the systems are now really starting to go, hang on a minute, this is not right. And people having children and becoming parents, especially, that's a big level of awareness, isn't it?
it put a lot of people back at home, right, with no way to be away from their children. And for better or worse, that creates relationship,
Mm.
right? And that was one of the biggest things as well, was how quickly I was surprised, particularly with Archer, how quickly they tried to cut that cord, even with like things like breastfeeding, or how quickly people were wanting me to make him be independent. And I kept having to say he's a baby,
Mm.
right? And it was that, oh, you should be encouraging him to be independent. Now I say he's a baby,
Oh,
right? He can be
baby.
independent for the rest of his life. This is not that stage. This is literally called dependence, right? This is not the independent stage. But it started, and you could see what they did with boys, because people would say to my son, "Don't cry," or "You're all right." And you're talking like to a kid that was like, 1.5, 2, and you're sitting there going, "Of course you can cry." And they're like, "Oh, you're just gonna like, create like a weak child," or like people saying, "Oh, you yeah, like I'm gonna have to toughen him up," and I was like, "I'd like to see you try." Right? It's not anyone's job to toughen a child up.
Mm.
Um, but you could see what was coming out of them, that they were like already trying to like um and it wasn't just men, it was very much women had their own ideas about what a boy should be, or what, which was quite interesting. COVID definitely challenged my marriage in huge ways. I think for Todd it was very hard as well, going from that freedom and running events all over the world to suddenly, you know, everything being locked down. That was really heartbreaking,
Yeah.
I think. And he did switch over to activism very quickly, but I think partly he struggled to feel the loss, you know. Um, and I think my son really helped anchor him, because I think he was really in that energy of like, why the hell am I here? What's the point of being on a planet when this is going on? And then when I can really see him anchoring in and being like, okay, we're gonna do this, like kind of like a lock in, like lock and load. When I like held my son for the first time, I kind of held him, felt him go from, oh, get emotional, from I don't know why the hell I'm here, to
Here's my purpose. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Isn't it amazing the timing? The timing of things is incredible.
And the like the lack of words for things. Like I don't think sometimes we never had a conversation about it. You could just feel it. You know, it's the same thing said about consciousness. The What's happening with social media, what's happening with AI, what's happening with the globalization, and with people being able to move to avoid different types of financial control, medical controls. Like they can say no to you here, and you can go to Germany, you can go to Mexico, you can go to wherever you want and receive the treatment that you need. You know, that just wasn't available for our parents and our grandparents. Didn't exist. If the doctor said no, it was no.
Yeah,
You know, I can go online and research any illness that I want and have access to the best studies in the world, the most recent studies in the world, from wherever I am in the world. Whereas before, that would take decades. You'd have to pay for papers, you'd have to join specific libraries, you'd have to have specific qualifications. Um, I am scared about what people are going to do with that level of information. And I'm also scared with misinformation and with people being able to potentially control it. But I think at the end of the day, because there's always been two sides to this, you know, and I think there's as many people who are interested in our freedom as a collective as there are people who are interested in controlling it.
there's a real there's a real silent revolution going on, isn't there? I mean, it's not people. It's not necessarily all happening out there in the wider world that's visible, but there's an internal revolution going on within people where when you have your awakening, you wake up kind of internally. You your blinkers come off, you start seeing the world differently. But once that happens, you can't shut it down again. You can never go back to the person you were before. You can't unbecome who you really are once you find out who you really are and how you really are meant to be living as a soul, inhabiting a body and, as a divine spark. And once you have that awareness, the whole world shifts. It's like you suddenly see how backwards it's all been and how inverted and how distorted and how much it's been set up. And I think that maximum capacity, the more people that are going through that internal kind of silent personal revolution, the more the whole system's just going to shake its whole foundations, and it's going to have to flip. It's like a pole shift within all those systems. I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And of course, it's starting to happen now. If you look at, like, I love watching Pam Gregory and all her astrology because it always lines up with everything that's going on the planet. But I love, we're all doing our bit. And Skylar, your work is just incredible. And how amazing that you're teaching so many and that you're teaching doctors and that there are doctors that are willing to learn. That to me is such a sign of the awakening. Doctors, nurses, medical people are coming to you to receive this kind of training. That says there has been a massive shift. That is phenomenal.
In the beginning, it wasn't, I was expecting spiritual people. I wasn't expecting medical people. And then it became it makes absolute sense, right? It just makes absolute sense that if you love people enough to train us in health, you want to be able to master all the areas. And they often do courses in nutrition and homeopathy and other stuff in the background as well. But it was, like you said, for me, a huge sign of the awakening, and it was a huge sign of how tired they are of having to watch people suffer and of implement things that don't work instead of being able to implement things
Yeah.
that do work. And it's very interesting because they have such good intuitive libraries because they've had so much textbook learning and stuff like that. It just makes it so much easier for the other side to kind of communicate with them, or for their intuition to, like, remote view or clock into things, like you said about your dad.
Yeah.
um it makes it very effortless. And I think it's going to become normal. I genuinely think it's going to become normal. It's just going to be like nutrition should be an aspect of medicine. I have no idea how they got away with taking that out of medical care. I think, emotional and spiritual intelligence and being able to navigate um, should absolutely be part of medical care.
Mm.
And there's no conflict. We need doctors in the world, good ones.
Mm.
And there are times where surgery is important, like, when a tumor or a cyst is full of toxins, or when it's,
Mm.
because that's sometimes what the body's doing. It's like literally protecting you from sepsis, or protecting you from a chemical that was absorbed that was never supposed to be there in the first place, that would hurt your kidneys or hurt your liver if it had to go through that. The body's not daft.
Mm.
But it can't just be, you know, everybody same thing
Mm.
on a churn. It can't be about medicine, can't be about money. Medicine has to be, about health.
Mm. It has to. I mean, that's the whole point of the Hippocratic Oath. And it's so interesting. So does your family like support what you're doing? Your parents, how are they with everything that you've gone through? How have they coped with you being who you are?
Oh gosh, like I think the hardest part was the awakening, because I remember my mom saying to me, like, who are you and what have you done with my daughter? And then because I, like, finished my law degree and finished my honors, and then I was like, I'm gonna go and be a spiritual teacher. I'm not gonna keep going down the traditional route. I think that was very scary for them. They thought it was gonna, like, be 1 minute, darling, in a minute. Um, they thought it was gonna, like, mean lack of financial success or things like that. I think that was very hard for them. And we went through, like, very difficult separations and things when I was making those choices, because they felt like I was destroying my life. They felt like I was really not abandoning, like, values that were a core part of their identity.
Mm.
And then they struggled with the imposter thing. They really struggled with, it's not real. Are you being dishonest? Are you misleading people on that particular level? But I'm stubborn. I think healers are really stubborn. And I think when they started getting a lot of positive feedback, and when they started seeing that I was going to be okay, and that, you know, that I was going to have my own community, and that, you know, I wasn't going to be, like, isolated, or that I wasn't going to think that there was something wrong with the way they did things. It was just my way was my way, or a different way.
Mm.
They started to, relax and breathe, etc. And then my mom has been an absolute godsend since the kids came. Because she really, I'm not able to do what I need to do if I'm worried about them not being loved and not being okay. And she's, like, the closest thing to mother love that I have. But yeah, so they've adapted to I think my dad kind of thinks I do some sort of pseudo medicine somewhere.
Love that.
um, but, like, it's the same thing. Like, it's more than tolerance. There's a genuine love between us. There's a genuine respect. And I think it's what you said about your husband. We're very different, but that respect and that ability to really honor each other's differences, it's a kind of beautiful diversity.
Mm.
But you said your dad's a doctor, so you must be in something similar.
Yeah, he actually said to me once years ago, there was like this realization, when he got over the fact that it was mumbo jumbo that I was doing, he made this beautiful comment out of the blue and he said, Al, none of my kids followed me into medicine, but you followed me into healing. And I know, right? And I was like,
Yeah,
thank you so much for all your time. Oh my God, we could go on probably chatting for days.
definitely. It's been wonderful.
It's been such a wonderful conversation, and I know that there's loads more I can ask you, but just one final question for people that are currently feeling disempowered in their healing journey. What would you say to them?
Whenever we're feeling disempowered, it's because we've put our power in the wrong place, right? The point of power isn't in a system, and it's not even, like, inside our body. It's literally inside the present moment.
Mm.
And you genuinely have probably everything you need to get healthy inside your house already, right? If you have clean water, if you have vegetables, if you have fruit, that is how simple often a return to complete health is.
Mm.
Um, the biggest block that I see to people returning to their own power is a lack of courage.
Mm.
People are afraid of their own feelings. They're so attached to who they want to be that they're scared of being with who they've become and who they really are now.
Mm.
Right. And that lack of presence, it costs. It costs a lot. Um, the most important thing is to realize that you're the one who's been assigned your body. You get to believe whether you can get better or not, not anybody else.
Mm.
And the last thing I'm going to say is that there are many ways to get better. Okay. But you do have to be consistent with the one you choose.
Mm.
So part of the way that people get stuck is that they keep flipping without really giving something a chance to work, whether they choose one thing or the other, because they're so scared nothing will work. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm.
So when you choose a path, trust that path, right? All roads lead to Rome. Don't keep skipping from one path to the other, because trust me, one path is challenging enough, right? And 9 times out of 10, that will get you either to complete recovery or to at least 70%. And then you can figure out the rest when you're feeling a bit stronger. But
Mm.
that's what I would say if they're feeling like really disempowered. It's like, stop, come back to center, choose a direction, and then move towards your health. Probably last thing is pardon my language, stay the fuck away from people that don't believe you can get better. I
Yes.
don't care who
Oh
they
my
are. I don't
God.
care if it's your husband. I don't care if it's your mom. I don't care if it's your doctor. Run away. This is your life we are talking about. And when you are vulnerable, when you wonder if you're going to like survive tomorrow or like 5 months down the line, and you have someone constantly feeding that you're not going to live inside your ear, get away from that person.
Mm.
Right. And that's what I would say. Because some people are like, no, but I have to go to that doctor. I have to go. You don't have to do anything.
Mm.
Run.
Mm.
Right. If you want to live, stay away from anybody that thinks you're going to die. It's that simple.
My God. So, and osmosis is a thing, picking up on, the people you hang out with, the groups you hang out with, the conversations you're having, it's all part of it. It's all part of the thing, isn't it? So,
It's massive. Like the number of people I've had, literally, I've had people come with like literally like ovarian cancer or severe like fourth or fifth stage cancers because they've tried everything else, right? And I'm the last retort. They are able to go into remission often within 2 or 3 months. And then the amount of pressure that they get from toxic people constantly be like, oh, it's going to come back. It's going to come back. It's going to come back. And I literally have to say, get away from anybody that wants you dead. Get away from anybody that wants you dead. Anybody that's not popping champagne corks.
yeah.
You've just had this kind of achievement. It's no different than you winning, like, you just won the lottery.
Yeah.
Why is anybody telling you that it's not going to last?
Why would people do that? I mean, seriously.
It can part of the collective consciousness. I think a lot of professionals can't believe that it's possible, and they're obviously giving those death sentences to a lot of the other people. So if it's possible for one, then what have they been doing? It's like you said, like they've been dissociated from their own responsibility,
Yeah.
and suddenly it's like, well, if this one can, then maybe the others could. And you with me? It's a whole different level of
And people
trigger.
need to be right, don't they? They need to be right. That cognitive dissonance of like, this is what I believe and I'm not moving from it is so unbelievable.
It's massive. I don't like genuinely. I'm very like I really believe in free will. So my clients, I don't try and change their medical protocol. I don't try and tell them to do specific things unless they ask me to work in like a nutritionist capacity. I literally will say, what is the path you've chosen? And then we do the spiritual support along that path. Right. So if they're doing whatever it is, whether it's chemo, whether it's radiation, whether it's surgery, whatever, we're downloading the chemo and we're creating tracks that make them like they have to believe the path they chose is going to make them better.
Mm.
Right. Um, but it's never stopped them from getting better.
Mm.
There isn't a path that could lead to illness if they believe they're going to get healthy, right? That's the power of focus and faith.
Mhm.
But that shocked me how many people would proactively try and tell them that it was gonna come back. They had to um like they couldn't do anything, they couldn't have any fun, they could never really consider themselves healthy because the people around them wouldn't let them. And I was like, no,
Mm.
no, 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 you can't have somebody constantly 24 hours a day telling you that you're sick when you're healthy and
Yeah, no.
not affect you. So if you have people like that, and sometimes is what you said, sometimes you don't realize that until you're in it. Sometimes you think someone has your back until you're actually in it. You're like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense, right? What are they getting out of me being sick, right? Sometimes, sometimes narcissists and psychopaths and stuff are subtle. They're not always obvious.
Mm.
Um, but if you are around people like that, whether whoever they are, get away from them because you deserve to live. You're absolutely capable of restoring yourself to health. You are not delusional, and nobody deserves to live like that.
Mm. Excellent, amazing advice. And so, finally, how can people find you and your courses and get in touch with you? So, you've got your Shift Network course is called Getting to the Root. Can you just remind me, honey?
Getting to the root cause of medical intuition.
Okay. And I'll pop
And
all the links below the video so people can find you. And then you've got the big mastermind, don't you?
yeah, that is the deep dive. That's the if you want to be a professional medical intuitive and get insurance and certifications and stuff like that, we go for it's either 6 months or a year. You get to decide what pace, different healers, different strokes, right? But we go deep into everything from the disease whispering to the past life to the quantum jumping to the creating new bodies from the ground up to the altering the DNA to the nutrition supplements to like we go really deep and there's consistent like practice groups and support all the way through to really get you to a point where you feel confident that you're going to be able to support other people through some of the hardest times that they're going to go through. Um, yeah, so it's and the shift one is we're really teaching the basics. We're teaching body scans, we're teaching body readings, we're teaching the different body systems. It's really, going from zero to I understand what my medical intuition is and I know how to use it, right, to help myself and to help others. As opposed to I want to be a professional medical intuitive and this is what I want to do, which is what the mastermind is.
Brilliant, brilliant. Amazing. Well, Skylar, thank you so much for this beautiful and enlightening conversation. And we'll probably speak again at some point, I'm sure. And I'm going to let you go and look after your kiddies. And
Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for having me on here. And yeah, we'll definitely speak again. Ideally, I think we should probably organize to meet somewhere.
I think we need to go have a cup of tea somewhere. I know. Well, I've been meaning to get up to Scotland. My mum's side of the family are from Scotland, so I need to get up there and do a trip. So maybe I need to
Anytime.
go visit. Amazing. Thank you so much, honey. Have a lovely day, and thank you everyone for watching.